I live in a small farming community about 50 miles northeast of Edmonton, a place called Wasetna. We're right on the edge of the Upgrader Alley, so heavily impacted by pipelines and the presence of the oil and gas industry.
Last week in Parliament, the Farmers Union won an important battle. Can you tell me about that, please?
The battle had to do, it was with Bill C-13, which the present government wanted to basically gut and deregulate, take away a lot of powers from the Grain Commission as it related to the benefits of farmers. And we were able to convince the Liberals, the Bloc, and the NDP that if they put a hoisting motion forward in Parliament, that the debate on that bill could be suspended for about 6 months.
Tell us why the Grain Commission is so important to farmers.
Because it's an independent organization that does grading and inspection for Western Canadian farmers. So if we have any disputes with a grain company over grade, we can send that grain to or sample of grain to the Grain Commission, and they give us a fair grade in terms of perhaps what quality of wheat it is, the protein levels, and so forth, and then that becomes binding between the farmer and the grain company.
Now, the government, the Harper government, wants to make these kinds of services private and commercial instead of public and independent, like the Grain Commission. Is that the thrust of this?
That's the thrust of it. That's correct. So basically, you have the grain companies doing their own grading.
At the same time, the Harper government has been targeting, actually for several years, the Wheat Board, the Canadian Wheat Board. And I understand that the Farmers Union has been fighting that. Tell me how that fight is going and what you've done.
Well, the best thing I can say about that fight is that Jerry Ritz, who is the Minister of Agriculture, has said that the Conservative government presently has no immediate steps to restart their campaign to basically get rid of the Canadian Wheat Board. So we think we've won a small victory there. We've done a lot of work over the past couple of years in trying to get directors elected to the Canadian Wheat Board who actually support the Canadian Wheat Board. And the Canadian Wheat Board in its structure is somewhat odd, because basically you can have people who become directors of that organization who take an oath to support the organization, and yet on the other hand can work to undermine the success of that organization.
Well, the government appointed a president who has that position, right?
Ian White is the current government appointee, but the government has the right to appoint 4 independent individuals to sit on the Canadian Wheat Board as part of their as part of the directorship. And of course, when they came to power, they got rid of the 4 people that were currently board supporters and occupying those positions, and replaced them with people who did not support those positions. So basically, the way the Canadian Wheat Board stands at the present time, there's 15 directors on the board. 8 of them support the board, some of them don't.
We're in a time of crisis. The economic crisis everyone is aware of, the many environmental crises. There's also a food crisis, and there's a rural crisis as well. Rural communities are fighting to maintain themselves. Is this related to the public-private, the battle over public versus private as well?
I think it is. When you think of what's happened in the grain industry in the past 30 years. Everything has been done to support the interests of the multinational corporations. Very little seems to have been done to support small or even average-sized family farms. So basically, we've supported agribusiness, our governments have supported agribusiness, and basically what we have is agribusiness.
So, for instance, you were mentioning the effects of crops that are dependent on Roundup. That's an example?
That's an example, yeah. Basically, we have multinational corporations that produce the seed, produce the chemical, wish to market the grain, control the retail sector, and basically it's vertical integration, and it's been allowed to continue unfettered.
What kind of policies should governments be pursuing if we want to address the food crisis, if we want to strengthen rural communities? I know you could talk about this all day, but if there was a short list of 3 or 5 items, where would you start?
Well, I would start with certainly the support of the Canadian Wheat Board, which is an organization that speaks for farmers. It works in the best interests of farmers. It's not perfect. But it is in continually changing. I think it's getting better all the time, and it's. I just sometimes like to think of how effective that organization would be if it had a supportive government and 15 directors who actually supported the vision of the Canadian Wheat Board. I would say it's extremely difficult to be at that board table and try and move forward when half of the people of directors don't support the board, even though they take an oath that says that they do. It would not fly anywhere in the business community.
The beef industry in Canada is in real crisis. In my part of the world, in Eastern Ontario, farmers are getting out of beef in a big hurry. What would be needed to help the Canadian beef industry regain its strength and prosper?
Well, certainly, my experience is more with what we've seen in Alberta and Western Canada. We certainly the first thing to do would be to ban captive supply of beef, and to support small abattoirs and support smaller herds, and to basically get away from the two packing houses that we are currently left with in Alberta that basically control the beef industry. They own the auction houses, they own the feedlots, and they own the packing houses.